You've been there. You're standing in a group friends, colleagues, maybe even family, and she says something that hits like a knife wrapped in laughter. A sarcastic jab. A comment that turns your strength into a punchline. Everyone laughs. And for a split second, you do too, pretending it doesn't sting. But deep down, something shifts. That moment echoes in your mind long after the room goes quiet. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You tell yourself she was just joking. But that's the lie most men tell themselves right before they lose the frame. What looked like harmless teasing was actually a status move, subtle way to pull power, to make you appear smaller while she gains validation from the crowd. And here's the part most men miss. It's never just about the words. It's about the public display, the unspoken message that says, I can disrespect him, and he won't do anything about it. If you've ever felt that sting, the silent humiliation that nobody else noticed, but you're not alone. Because what just happened wasn't an accident. It was a test. Now, let's uncover why she did it, and why so many men never see it coming. What most men never realize is that moments of public humiliation aren't random. They're power tests. Women, consciously or not, are wired to test a man's frame, his composure, and his sense of authority. When she mocks you in front of others, she's not just being playful, she's checking one thing. Can this man hold his ground when challenged? It's a subtle game of hierarchy. In social settings, people instinctively rank one another. A woman who teases, interrupts, or corrects you in front of others isn't trying to communicate, she's sending a signal. She's saying, I have the power to lower his status. And the group watches how you respond. That's the moment that decides whether you're seen as strong or submissive. You might think ignoring it shows maturity, but silence, when it comes from fear, doesn't read as confidence. It reads as weakness. And once she senses that, the dynamic shifts permanently. You've lost the frame, okay? And she's holding it. Here's the brutal truth. The nice guy who laughs it off believes he's keeping the peace. In reality, he's training her hand, everyone watching, to see him as the man who won't defend his own dignity, but the high-value man. He doesn't argue, and he doesn't get emotional. He simply reclaims the frame through calm, grounded energy, maybe a steady look, maybe a quiet smile that says, you don't shake me. This isn't about ego. It's about presence. Because the man who can maintain composure when publicly tested radiates authority. He doesn't need to prove anything. And that's exactly what makes him untouchable. If you've ever felt that quiet shift in energy after being mocked, the way people looked at you differently, that was the moment. The game was decided. But don't worry, the game can be learned on. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Next, let's expose how society gives women permission to disrespect men and even rewards them for it. Asterisk, here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern culture has quietly normalized the humiliation of men. In movies, sitcoms, talk shows, and even social media trends, men being mocked, dismissed, or embarrassed isn't treated as cruelty, it's treated as comedy. The clumsy husband, the clueless boyfriend, the guy who can't do anything right, he's become the default punchline. And society laughs. When a man makes a mistake, he's labeled toxic, controlling, or insecure. But when a woman publicly belittles her man, it's empowerment. That's the double standard every modern man lives under. The message is clear. It's open season on male dignity. Scroll through social media, and you'll see it everywhere. Videos of women exposing private arguments, mocking their partners, or testing them for laughs. The comments? Full of people cheering her on. But if a man did the same, he'd be crucified, canceled, condemned. That's the cultural imbalance we've quietly accepted. And what's worse, most men go along with it. They laugh at the jokes, they smile through the disrespect, hoping it'll stop if they stay calm, kind, and patient. But it never does. Because once humiliation is rewarded, it becomes habit. Women learn that disrespect gets attention. Men learn that silence avoids conflict. And that's how the cycle continues, generation after generation of men who think tolerance is strength, and women who think mockery is power. But here's the part that should shake you awake. The longer you allow it, the more invisible your respect becomes. Every time you shrug it off, you reinforce her belief that she can do it again. Every time you say nothing, the audience watching learns your silence means permission. This isn't about hating women. It's about calling out the conditioning that teaches them to disrespect men without consequence. Him teaches men to accept it as normal. Because the truth is, once you stop tolerating it, the game changes. The crowd stops laughing. The energy shifts. And for the first time, she sees you not as entertainment, but as a man who commands respect. Next, let's dive deeper into why it hurts so much when it happens. What's really going on inside you when it does? When a woman humiliates you in front of others, it doesn't just bruise your ego, it hits something deeper, something ancient. Men are wired for respect. It's not vanity, it's survival. Throughout history, a man's reputation determined his position, his trust, even his safety. So when you're embarrassed publicly, especially by someone close to you, your mind reacts as if your entire status is under attack. That's why it lingers. You replay the moment in your head, what she said, how people laughed, what you should have said. You feel the tension in your chest, that dull anger that turns into self. You tell yourself to let it go, but part of you can't. That's not weakness. That's your biology screaming that something's wrong. See? Humiliation isn't just emotional pain. It's a social wound. When someone makes you look small in front of others, your subconscious registers it as a loss of rank. The body reacts with shame. The mind scrambles for explanations, and the soul feels betrayed, especially when it comes from a woman you trusted, admired, or loved. And here's the cruel twist. She may not even realize what she's done. To her, it might feel like light teasing. But to you, it feels like she just took a part of your identity and tossed it to the crowd. That's the silent agony men rarely talk about. Because when women feel hurt, society encourages them to express it. When men feel humiliated, society tells them to man up. So you bury it. You hide it behind a forced smile, behind more work, behind silence. But the more you suppress it, the more power that moment holds over you. Every unspoken humiliation chips away at your confidence, until you start walking on eggshells, just to avoid it again. Here's the truth most men never hear. You're not overreacting. You're responding exactly the way a man is built to respond when his respect is stolen in public. Asterisk. The pain isn't weakness, it's a signal. And once you understand what it's trying to tell you, that pain becomes fuel. Next, we'll uncover why women do it in the first place and the hidden need for dominance behind it. When someone embarrasses their partner in front of others, it almost never comes out of nowhere. Beneath the jokes, sarcasm, or cutting remarks lies a need for control, a craving to prove superiority or mask insecurity. Public humiliation is rarely about the person being humiliated. It's about the person doing it and the emotional chaos they're trying to hide. People humiliate their partners because it gives them a temporary sense of power. When they feel unseen, anxious, or inadequate, they reach for dominance in the one place they can find it: another person's dignity. It's an unhealthy way of saying, I matter, I'm strong, I'm in control. In reality, it reveals the opposite: deep emotional instability and fear of vulnerability. There's also a social element at play. In a group, people often perform for validation. Mocking a partner can become a twisted way of seeking attention or approval. The laughter or agreement from others feels like acceptance, even if it comes at the cost of someone else's respect. It's emotional theater, a quick ego boost that leaves lasting damage. Psychologists call this displacement redirecting frustration, shame, or fear onto someone safe. It's easier to belittle the person closest to you than to confront your own pain. Over time, these moments become patterns: small digs, public jokes, and subtle jabs that slowly erode trust. But here's the truth that changes everything. It's not about you. The words may sting, the crowd may laugh, but the behavior exposes their wounds, not your worth. The person who needs to humiliate someone else to feel strong is revealing that they can't feel strong any other way. That doesn't mean you ignore it. Understanding the cause isn't the same as excusing it. The healthiest response isn't to fight for approval, it's to set the boundary. When you calmly refuse to engage, When you remove your attention from the performance, you take away the reward. You stop feeding the cycle. Standing your ground doesn't have to mean confrontation. It means clarity, seeing the behavior for what it is and deciding it has no power over you. That shift from confusion to composure is where real strength begins. Because when you understand that public humiliation is just a reflection of someone else's insecurity, you stop carrying the shame that isn't yours to hold. And that's when respect, both yours and theirs, starts to return. Next, we'll look at how culture itself has learned to normalize this behavior and why that needs to change. We live in a world that often treats public humiliation as entertainment. Talk shows, reality TV, viral videos, and online prank content have all blurred the line between humor and cruelty. The more outrageous or embarrassing the moment, the more attention it gets. Somewhere along the way, dignity became less important than engagement. Asterisk, this isn't just a problem between partners, it's a reflection of what culture rewards. When a man teases his partner, people call it toxic. When a woman does the same, it's empowerment. When a boss publicly scolds an employee, it's leadership. When friends mock each other online, it's banter. We've created a system where humiliation is repackaged as confidence and cruelty is masked as authenticity. The result? People grow numb to disrespect. They confuse visibility with value. They learn that the fastest way to feel important is to make someone else look small. And the crowd encourages it, not realizing they're participating in a slow erosion of empathy. This cultural double standard thrives because it feels safe, gives people an illusion of control. But what it really breeds is distance. Partners stop trusting each other. Colleagues stop respecting each other, and the line between love and mockery disappears. The truth is, confidence never requires humiliation. Strength never demands someone else's weakness. The people who quietly uphold respect even when it's unfashionably, the ones who set the new standard. They refuse to laugh when the joke crosses the line. They call out cruelty disguised as humor, and slowly they shift what's acceptable. Asterisk, cultural change doesn't start with movements or slogans. It starts with individuals who decide that kindness isn't weakness. When you choose not to participate in the game of public shaming, when you stay composed, calm and grounded, you send a silent message. Respect still matters. And that message spreads faster than humiliation ever could. Next, we'll explore how to reclaim your composure and rebuild your inner power when someone tests you in public. Every person eventually faces that defining moment, the instant they realize that their reaction matters more than the insult itself. That's the turning point. Regaining your frame doesn't mean fighting back louder. It means anchoring yourself so deeply in self-respect that no one can pull you off balance. When you're publicly challenged, your first instinct is to defend yourself. That's natural. But defense keeps you locked in their frame. It says, "You have the power to define me." The better move is presence. Silence. A calm, steady breath that says, "You don't control this moment, I do." People misinterpret composure as weakness, but it's actually strength in its purest form. The person who can stay emotionally neutral in the face of disrespect shows everyone, including the offender, who truly holds the power. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing your timing and tone with precision. Here's the key. Never perform for the crowd. Don't try to win their laughter or sympathy. You're not there to manage perceptions. You're there to maintain integrity. When you stay calm, grounded, and respectful, you interrupt the cycle of humiliation. The performance dies when the audience stops reacting. That shift is magnetic. People start to notice that you don't take the bait. You carry yourself differently. And the person who tried to humiliate you, they feel it too. Suddenly, their need for attention falls flat. Their power play loses its energy because you refuse to fuel it. This is how real confidence looks. Sits not loud. It's steady. You stop arguing for your worth and start embodying it. And from that moment forward, every room you walk into feels different because your energy tells a new story. You can't be shaken by disrespect. The turning point isn't about revenge or proving yourself. It's about learning that dignity is a silent authority. When you stand in that power, the world begins to mirror it back. Next, we'll we'll dive into the practical side, how to set boundaries and command respect without conflict or fear. Once you've regained composure, the next step is learning how to protect it. Respect doesn't appear by chance, it's cultivated through consistent boundaries and quiet strength. Boundaries are not walls. They're frameworks that define how others are allowed to treat you. When you know where your lines are, you no longer fear confrontation because you're not reacting. You're simply reinforcing what's already clear. Start small. When someone makes a joke at your expense, don't laugh just to ease the tension. A calm, neutral look often says more than 1,000 words. If it continues, address it privately and directly. I don't appreciate being spoken to like that. No anger, no lecture, just certainty. People respect clarity because it's rare. Commanding presence isn't about dominance. It's about energy. Speak less, listen more, and move with intention. The person who doesn't rush to fill silence radiates authority. You show others that you're not desperate for approval. Your validation comes from within. That's what makes your boundaries unshakable. Asterisk, remember, respect is reinforced through consistency. You can't demand it once and ignore it later. Every interaction, how you handle disagreement, how you treat yourself when alone, how you speak about others teaches people what you expect in return. And here's the paradox. The more you respect yourself, the less you'll have to demand it from anyone else. People intuitively adjust to the standards you live by. The partner who once teased you learns there's no reward in it anymore. The coworker who mocked you starts to measure their words. Slowly, your environment aligns with your energy. Commanding presence is not about control, it's about peace. It's the quiet power that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you no longer allow. When you embody that energy, you stop chasing respect and start attracting it naturally. Because real authority isn't announced, it's felt. Next, we'll define what this new kind of confidence looks like, the modern standard of strength and masculinity that doesn't need validation. Only purpose. True strength today isn't about outshouting others or proving you're right. It's about emotional control and inner steadiness. The new masculine standard isn't built on aggression or ego. It's built on presence. The kind of quiet confidence that speaks before you do. The man who embodies this standard doesn't chase approval or fear rejection. He knows who he is, and that certainty shapes every interaction. He doesn't react to disrespect. He redirects the moment through composure. He doesn't seek validation from others because his self-respect already anchors him. That's what separates power from posturing. For too long, men were taught that strength meant suppressing emotion or dominating others. But real masculinity is balance. It's empathy without weakness, discipline without rigidity, confidence without arrogance. It's the ability to remain calm in chaos and grounded when tested. The new standard isn't loud or performative. It's the stillness in a storm, the unshakable presence that earns respect without demanding it. It's understanding that self-mastery is the most attractive and unbreakable trait a man can have. Every man who embraces this shift not only transforms himself, but also reshapes the world around him. Because when men lead with clarity, restraint, and purpose, everyone around them feels safer, steadier, and more grounded. Next, let's close with a powerful reminder, final call to live this truth every day. Respect begins and ends with you. The moment you stop reacting to disrespect and start living from self-control, everything changes. You don't need to prove your worth, just embody it. Stay calm when tested, stay kind when challenged, and stay grounded when provoked. That's how quiet power is built. Every time you walk away from drama and choose peace over ego, you're rewriting your story. You're becoming the kind of person who commands respect simply by existing. So remember, beg for dignity, stand for it, live it, and let your silence speak louder than their noise.